Before last week, the main issue surrounding Pedro Martinez was his sore right toe. That was before the Washington Nationals came to Shea. Pedro hit 3 batters and bruised some feelings. Tonight, it's Pedro and the Nationals in Washington. It's a beautiful spring evening in our nation's capital as the Mets continue their first road trip of the season, as tonight the Mets play the Washington Nationals at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. Pedro Martinez getting set for his second start of the season. The first one wasn't a thing of beauty. He walked 4 batters, hit 3 more, which leads to tonight's situation. But he got the win, and tonight he'll go for his second victory of the year as the Mets try to win their 5th straight game and their 2nd straight in this series against the Washington Nationals. And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to our nation's capital. Gary Cohan and Ron Darling with you tonight as the Mets take on the Nationals. Last night, Brian Bannister got his first Major League win. He did it, though, by not pitching inside early in the game, with the umpires having been given a heads up to watch for any kind of incidents in this series, but Bannister was still able to get the job done.
Yeah, he and Paul LaDuca, the catcher, wanted to make sure that Bannister didn't have any incidents inside, that he hit someone and maybe someone would charge. They just wanted him to concentrate on getting some outs, getting deep into the game, which he did by pitching a fine 7 innings.
On the contrary, though, Pedro Martinez going tonight, he's not going to worry much about pitching outside early in the game.
Nothing bothers Pedro. He's going to pitch his game plan. And the thing about Pedro is that he has to pitch inside to have success. He'll jam hitters, and occasionally when he comes in, like he did in his last start when he did not have his control, he will hit some batters. But the thing about Pedro, he sticks to his game plan, and I don't think I've ever seen a pitcher who's less afraid than Pedro Martinez.
Well, the Mets certainly have nothing on their minds except playing baseball tonight, but do the Nationals still have a sense of needing retribution?
I think the Nationals feel like they have a chip on their shoulder. They really feel like they were ganged up upon by having the ejections, by having the suspensions. So I think they feel that. Certainly the Mets don't.
Meanwhile, the Mets have won 4 in a row. They lead the league in hitting. They've gotten a lot of contributions from a lot of people, but after starting out 0 for 9, Carlos Beltran's hitting his stride.
And it's good to see. Because of the Boo Birds at Shea early on, he's responded. And yesterday with this long home run at RFK on a 3-2 pitch from Rodriguez, Beltran has showed that now he's hot again. He had 2 hits and also was robbed of 1 by Nick Johnson.
Well, the Mets are getting a lot of contributions offensively right now. David Wright has driven in a run in each of the first 6 games, first Met ever to do that. Jose Reyes is red hot, and so is Paul LaDuca, who has started every game behind the plate for the Mets. He's hitting, he's leading the pitching staff, which leads the league in ERA, and he talks with our Chris Cotter in just a moment. Crowd coming into RFK Stadium in Washington, where they had their home opener yesterday. Mets spoiled it by beating the Nationals 7-1. Mets will play this one tonight and a game tomorrow afternoon before heading home to play the Brewers at Shea on Friday night. Fans getting ready for the action tonight. There's Paul LaDuca catching some of Pedro Martinez's bullpen session. Today is Paul's 34th birthday, and he took a moment on his birthday to talk with Chris Cotter about tonight's game.
Paul, do you change your approach with your pitcher coming into a game like this after all the fireworks that took place last week with Pedro?
No, I don't think you can. You know, Pedro was, this is still sort of his spring training, so, you know, he didn't really have a good feel on a lot of his pitches, so hopefully tonight's a little different, but you can't. You gotta go the same way. You gotta try to get him out a certain way, and if it takes you have to go in, sometimes you're gonna have to go in. I mean, you can't throw every pitch away. It's just vice versa for them. You know, we feel they're gonna still pitch us in too. So hopefully, you know, guys use good judgment.
If it was a younger pitcher, would that change your approach? But now you're dealing with such a veteran like Pedro.
Maybe a little bit. You know, Bannister was, you know, second start, and he handled them very well. You know, Pedro's the same way. You're going to call the game accordingly, and, you know, Pedro, if he has to come up and in, he's going to have to come up and in. You know, usually he uses it to set up his other pitches, but, you know, sometimes when you want to go up, you know, it might get away. Hopefully it doesn't get to the point where it might get away and the umpire thinks it was intentional.
How about you in terms of catching? Are you going to catch 18 games? I think that's a team record, 18 in a row.
Probably not. I think he told me I might get a day off tomorrow, so but you know, I told him, you know, whenever he wants me out there, I'll be out there. I know I need my days off, and you know, we need Ramon too because Ramon can play. So, you know, we need the guys on the bench to get some at bats.
One extra day, like the rain out, for example, this past weekend, how much does that help you in terms of rejuvenating your batteries and letting you go maybe another week or 10 days further after that?
Yeah, well, it helps, you know, but then it's going to catch up when we got to play that doubleheader. So it's one of those things where it's good for now, but when it comes back up, it's going to hurt a little bit. But it's good to read. We've had a lot of days off, and in the rain, and you know, Willie was good with me in spring training. I didn't catch that much, so I feel good right now.
Wagner coming in yesterday and had a little bit of control problems. Is he finding his way? Missed all that time in spring. Do you think he's on target, though, to be where he needs to be?
I think so. You know, this is sort of his spring training, too. You mean, he missed a little bit, and I think he's going to be okay. He's just one of those things where he's having issues. His stuff is there. It's just a matter of getting feel on certain pitches, and I think he'll be fine. You know, a lot of closers, when they come in those type of situations, it's tough. Every closer I've ever caught always doesn't do well in those situations because there's no adrenaline part of it. And but I think he handled himself good. When he needed to make some pitches, he did.
Appreciate it, Paul.
You bet.
Longtime Met fans will remember the name Chris Cannizzaro. He caught the first 18 games for the Mets in 1965. Loduca will not do that. Pedro getting set to face the Nats coming up. Beautiful night in Washington as the Mets and Nationals play game 2 of their series. Tony Armas makes his second start of the year for the Nationals. A guy once traded for Pedro Martinez faces him for the first time in the Chevrolet lineup he'll face, including Carlos Delgado, who's 5 for 9 in his career against Armas. But the Mets are hitting up and down the lineup. Cliff Floyd's struggling a little right now, so is Xavier Nady after the hot start. But the Mets as a team have a .314 batting average, the best in the league.
Well, Tony Armas has really been injury prone. The right-hander is more of a 5 to 6 inning pitcher. Doesn't make a lot of starts during the year. One of those guys like Ramon Ortiz for the Nationals yesterday has really a fastball and a slider. Doesn't have a change of pace or a changeup. So for the Mets batters, they'll be looking for the hard stuff.
Armas has been very tough on the Mets over the years, but as you mentioned, staying healthy has been such a concern for him. Last year, a groin injury and dehydration and shoulder problems, and he wound up having shoulder surgery in late September.
You know, some pitchers, when they go out there, they don't realize what kind of toll it takes on your body, and some guys have to be 100% before they get out there. And if you're going to be a starting pitcher, you're going to go out there a lot of times when you're not 100%.
Jose Reyes leads off 5-game hitting streak to start the night, and he takes a strike from Armas, and we're underway in our nation's capital. Reyes at .357 with a homer and 7 RBIs, and a triple and 2 RBIs yesterday. And a letter high strike from Armas, and it's ahead 0-2.
Well, good pitch there by Armas. You can see his fastball has some tailing life to it.
Goes off speed and misses away, 1-2. Tony Armas, second generation major leaguer, pitched for Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic. You see quiet from the Red Sox for the guy he's facing on the mound tonight. 2-2 to Reyes. Carl Pavano was the other piece of that deal going to Montreal. As you look at Paul Loduca on deck, I'd say the Red Sox got the better of it. Reyes fouls it off.
You think?
Well, Pavano certainly has had some good years. Armas, a kid with great talent, and he's only 27. He's been around a long time, but if he could ever stay healthy, who knows what he might be able to do. But neither one combined approaches what Pedro did for the Red Sox. 3-2 to Reyes. So Jose works himself out of an 0-2 hole to get the count full. Showing a lot more patience. The payoff from Armas, and it's slapped foul, and so Reyes has seen 7 pitches in this opening at bat.
Not only showing a lot of patience, Gary, but also the ability to foul off. That was a tough pitch right on the outside corner.
Armas made his first start against the Astros last Friday, lost the game 6-1. Pitched 5 pretty good innings, but his team didn't hit for him. Again on 3-2, and Reyes pops it up. Clayton angling, he has the best shot at, and grabs it, and step into foul ground. So 1 away.
Well, the Nationals defense, you can see we have highlighted there Ryan Zimmerman, who has a chance someday, everyone in the Nationals organization agrees, to be a Gold Glove type candidate. is hitting well so far, but he's going to have to be protected by Schneider and Clayton behind him, who are not hitting to start the season.
He's going to have to find a way to get Scott Rowland out of the league if he wants to win a Gold Glove. Although he's been compared to Rowland in some quarters defensively. Well, here's Loduca celebrating his 34th birthday, and he takes a strike from Armas. Loduca, 3 hits yesterday, hitting at .348. Probably will get a day off tomorrow, his first of the season with a day game. 1-1 to Loduca.
We heard before the game, Paul made a nice comment that Ramon Castro can really play, and you have to get him at bats if you're going to have him be strong.
Let's have a day game after a night game tomorrow, and then again on Saturday. Breaking ball bounced to short, and Clayton with the overhand toss, 2 away. So 2 up and 2 set aside, and Carlos Beltran the batter. Beltran hit an enormous home run his last time up in yesterday's game. It hit off the facing right at the front of the upper deck. His second home run of the year, and he is really cooking now after an 0 for 9 start. And he takes a strike at the knees from Armas. Right at the 4.68. That's where that ball hit yesterday. And that may be the longest home run that Beltran has hit since joining the Mets last year. Just looks a whole lot more relaxed right now. Chases a high pitch there, 1-2.
Well, you can see this is kind of a hanging slider or a backup slider for Carlos Beltran that stays up in the strike zone, swings right through it.
So Armas ahead of the count, 1-2. And Beltran breaks his bat, gets it past Johnson and into right field. So Beltran, who yesterday hit a searing line drive that Johnson caught, this time it's a little flare with a broken bat, and Johnson can't catch up with it. That's how things even out.
Well, when you're hot, these things do happen. Like you said, not only a base hit to right field, but the bat ends up hitting Nick Johnson in the foot. Another base hit for Beltran.
So Carlos continues to fight his way out of that early hole. And now here's the other Carlos Delgado. Had a 1 for 4 day yesterday. Now has a 5-game hitting streak going. Hitting at .333. And he's had some success against Armas. 5 hits in 9 career at bats. Armas is 5-3 lifetime against the Mets with a 3.3 ERA. So he's been very tough. Ball 1 to Delgado. And the Nationals, as was the case in the series at Shea, do not overshift the infield against Delgado.
Vidro might be a little over, but certainly not the shift that we usually see with the shortstop on the right side of second base.
Good slider by Armas, 1-1. Now Beltran has 2 stolen bases, as you see that last pitch. But it seems as though he's a little reluctant to run with Delgado at the plate.
Well, it worked yesterday. Delgado got one of his base hits in the hole between first and second with Beltran not running.
Remember, this is where Beltran got hurt last year, right around the 1st of May, playing on a wet field at RFK. 2-1 to Delgado. But even before that, over the first month of the season last year, Beltran was reluctant to run because he had a red-hot Cliff Floyd, another pull-hitting left-hand batter behind him in the lineup. So it's kind of it's an interesting dynamic for Beltran to decide when to run with these left-hand hitters behind him. Two and 1 to Delgado. Hit toward the middle. Back-to-back base hits. Beltran will go first to third. And the Mets have runners at the corners with 2 down. Well, if the Nationals put on the full overshift there, the shortstop plays that ball.
Well, you made a good point, Gary, that if they do have that shift, he does get to that ball. And talking about your point you made about Carlos Beltran not running, as we look at the replay, Vidro's over in the hole, so this short ground ball that usually would be an easy 4-3 turns into a base hit. But talk about that point, talk about Beltran not running. I would run, though, if there's 2 outs. I think you always want to get in scoring position. If not, maybe then you stay on the base.
So an opportunity for David Wright, who's driven in a run in all 6 games the Mets have played this year, and that's already a club record from the start of a season. And he hits the breaking ball in the air to center, and Armas should get out of it. Brandon Watson puts it away, and so the Mets strand 2 in the opening inning against Armas. Back-to-back base hits for Beltran or Delgado. No score as Pedro takes the mound in the bottom of the first. Pedro Martinez goes to the mound amidst the catcalls from the Washington faithful as he takes on the Nationals for the 2nd time this year. Beat them in his first outing and caused some hard feelings along the way. The Rico Nationals lineup he'll face, the same one he faced the first time around. Brandon Watson, who struggled in that leadoff spot. Vidro has swung the bat well, but he hasn't had a whole lot of company. Nick Johnson and Alfonso Soriano have done okay. Soriano homered yesterday. But it's been a struggle for the Nationals to put up any kind of consistent offense.
Well, Pedro Martinez now 2 wins shy of 200 wins. Again, in his last start, had control problems, but I think the weather is going to play a part today. Very warm night, beautiful night to play baseball. That should help him with his control.
73 degrees, a far cry from what he pitched in his first time out. Here's Watson. And Pedro misses inside. Watson hitting just 174 after being handed the center field and leadoff spot in spring training. And again, Pedro comes inside, nicks the corner, 1-1. And I think that's a statement from Pedro. First 2 pitches, he comes inside. That's his game. Off speed, hit to short. And Reyes, after a brief bobble, throws out Watson, 1 away. So 1 out and nobody on. Jose Vidro coming up.
The Jeep Mets defense for the Mets. Paul LaDuca is circled there because early on the season here, he has shown that he likes to call a game inside, likes to catch a lot of pitches inside, call for the fastball in there.
Here's Vidro, who took an 0 for 4 yesterday. First game he hasn't had a hit in this year. Takes a strike. Pedro registering 84 with his fastball early on. And one thing we've learned very quickly over the last couple of seasons with Vidro, as you look at Guillen, his nemesis on deck, is that the radar gun does not matter. The days of 95 are over for Pedro, but he just pitches differently now.
Well, Pedro's great at adding and subtracting off his fastball or his changeup. If he doesn't have his good fastball, he'll make his fastball move a little more, sink a little bit in the strike zone. Just one of the best of all time at being able to pitch without his best stuff.
He's added that cut fastball in recent years, a good weapon for him. And he gets Vidro swinging for the 2nd out. So 2 away. And here comes Guillen, who is taking his time before approaching the batter's box. Guillen made a number of inflammatory comments following the incident at Shea 6 days ago, where after getting hit for a 2nd time in the game by Pedro, he brandished his bat and moved toward the mound. Basically, he said, if he hits me again, it's going to get ugly. And Pedro throws one letter high for a strike. Guillen lifetime 406 against Martinez. Nobody's done better against Pedro among active players. He hits one deep to center field. Back goes Beltran onto the warning track, and he reels it in. Guillen gave that one a pretty good ride, but this is a huge ballpark, and he hit it to the wrong part of the yard. So Pedro throws a 1-2-3 first onto the 2nd. No score. Sports Night, the news and information source for all New York area sports fans. Sports Night won't just report the news, it will break the news. 6 p.m., 10 p.m., and 1 a.m. every night, only on Sportsnet, New York. We go to the 2nd inning with no score. Jose Guillen crushed that last ball off Pedro Martinez, and in this ballpark, nothing happened.
Welcome to RFK. I saw it all last year. Just hitters shaking their heads.
Cliff Floyd takes a strike from Tony Armas, and Guillen had a lot of that last year. He had, what, 21 on the road and 3 at home?
And I think 3 were late, definitely after the All-Star break.
Floyd's struggling right now, hitting just 167 and hitless in his last 7 at-bats. He takes a strike. drove in a run with a sacrifice fly yesterday. It's 335 down the lines, 380 to the gaps, and 410 to center field, allegedly. Those are pretty good numbers anyway, as Floyd lays off the pitch up high. But there's every bit of evidence to conclude that it's actually deeper than that.
Jose Guillen took one of his teammates those glasses that measure off the distance that you use in golf, and it said 435, so didn't make him too happy. He's never happy anyway.
And 395 in the gaps was the report, which you wouldn't doubt. And a slider for a calls third strike to Floyd. Spends a moment with Phil Cuzzy. And that's the first strikeout for Armas.
Well, I think that pitch caught enough of the plate. I think Cliff thinks it's down, though.
Right now, Ronnie, Cliff looks all messed up at the plate.
He's just in between. You know, he's not recognizing the pitches. You can tell the way that he's reacting. Did not see that slider till too late.
Well, here's Xavier Nady, who after the hot start is 0 for his last 9, still hitting at 391. And he takes outside. The great thing for Floyd right now is that whereas last April he had to carry this team, the team is scoring runs without him and gives him time to get himself righted without too much pressure. Nady fouls it off 1-1.
Well, think about what this team would have looked like last year if he started out at this pace. It would have been very difficult for them to score in April.
Remember last year the Mets lost their first 5 games, but then they won their next 6 in a row, and Floyd had a lot to do with that. This year off to the hot start, winning 5 of 6. Nady takes outside 2-1. Somebody asked Willie Randolph today, so how do you keep your team from getting complacent? He said, well, got 156 to go. We're just playing here. Nady hits one foul. But it's so easy to forget, and I think that people watching baseball do it every year, forget just how long the season is. It's great to get off to a good start, and you see the Mets off to a 5-1 start for the first time in 21 years. But in the end, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Nady gets jammed. Schneider coming back, but he'll run out of room.
Well, like you said before, the schedule is set up for the Mets in such a good way that they should get off to a good start, playing Washington, playing Florida, teams that have really had a lot of changes, and I don't believe they're stronger than they were last year. But they'll have a real test this weekend. They're going to play a fine Milwaukee team that's really improved with some good young players like Prince Fielder and Ricky Weeks, and then Atlanta comes in.
Braves are in Shea Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Nady can't stop the swing. Good slider away by Armas, and he has back-to-back strikeouts, 2 down.
Well, as opposed to last year when Armas' slider kind of rolled up there, it's a very late-breaking, tight slider so far this evening.
So 2 out and nobody on, and Nady knew he'd been had. Here's Anderson Hernandez, who after struggling early is now hit in 3 straight games. Up to 174 on the year, and he drops one down. Will it hug the line? Schneider has to pick it up, fires too late. Well, Anderson Hernandez getting his base hits in different ways. Yesterday ran up and slapped one that bounced over the mound. This time laying down a gorgeous bunt that hugged the third base line.
Well, you see him come out early all the time working on his bunt, and this is a perfect bunt. Brian Schneider, one of the most athletic catchers in baseball, makes that play close. Just great form. See that bat out in front of the plate, and then by the time that Schneider gets to it, that great speed of Hernandez is easily safe.
It's a 2-out bunt hit, and if nothing else, it clears the pitcher's spot for the next inning. But now, let's see if the Nationals are inclined to throw close to Pedro. Armas misses high.
Well, that'd be an interesting call. Tony Armas with 2 outs and Martinez up. Maybe throw one inside just to let him know we're thinking about him.
Not necessarily hit him.
No.
Well, he came up and somewhat in with the first 2, but nothing particularly close.
Although Brian Schneider was sitting on the outside part of the plate, so that makes you think that Armas just came up and out of those pitches.
Pedro had an RBI single in his first start. He's hitting .500. Never been known for his bat. And there's a strike, 2-1. Frank Robinson sat out a 1-game suspension as the result of last week's incidents. Felix Rodriguez is appealing a 3-game suspension. 2-1 to Pedro, and there's a strike with a fastball. 2-2. Now Armas has got good stuff tonight.
He really does. It doesn't look like the same pitcher last year, but obviously he was hurting. Shoulder giving him problems.
So Reyes on deck. And Pedro takes it high, so now it's 3-2. So Armas missing high out of the strike zone on 3 occasions to his opposite number. So now Hernandez will be running with 3-2 and 2 down. See Johnson playing behind the runner as Hernandez gets set to go. And the payoff to Pedro, and he fouls it off. So Martinez making Armas work. Pedro is a lifetime .095 hitter. Hernandez runs, and Pedro takes low, ball 4. Now Armas will be kicking himself, and if he doesn't, Frank will do it for him.
Well, Frank can't stand when pitchers walk hitters, especially when they walk pitchers. Usually,
you know, if he was going to walk him, he might as well have hit him.
Exactly.
if that would have solved anything. So here's Reyes given an opportunity with 2 out and 2 on. Reyes fouled out to the shortstop his first trip. No score. We're in the second, and the slider in for a strike. Reyes worked an 8-pitch at bat his first trip. Armas walked only 1 in 5 innings in his first start against Houston. Generally has pretty good control. And Reyes lines one right back into Armas's glove. Thank you very much. A reaction play by Armas, and he snags it to prevent a run.
Tomorrow, the Mets and Nationals close out their series in the nation's capital, live on Sportsnet New York. It all starts with North Fork Bank pregame live. Mets, Nationals, coverage begins tomorrow at 12:30, only on Sportsnet New York.
Get your New York sports here. Tony Armas' dad was a great home run hitter and a pretty good outfielder as well, but this was just a reaction play by Armas to snag that liner by Reyes.
Just to save his own life for Tony Armas there.
So Reyes is denied a base hit. Mets are turned aside, and we go to the bottom of the second with no score. Nick Johnson leads off against Pedro, who got the side in order and survived a 400-foot fly ball by Jose Vidro to do it. And Johnson takes low. He had one of the 3 hits for the Nationals yesterday, as Brian Bannister pitched a gem over 7 innings for his first big league win. 1-1 to Johnson.
Well, we talked about it in the pregame, but pretty impressive that Bannister had that kind of game plan. Thought ahead that, hey, the last game I hit 3 national hitters. I don't want to do that today early in the game.
2-1 to Johnson. Well, Bannister, in concert with LaDuca, did a great job keeping the ball away early, coming in later, but most importantly, pitching from behind in the count effectively. Johnson lifts one to the big part of the ballpark. And again, plenty of room for Beltran. 1 away. Last inning, Anderson Hernandez got the Mets going with a bunt single.
Well, the thing you like about Hernandez is that you can see right here, look at the bat. He's got that out in front of him. You can see that left hand. He's just got it cradling the bat really softly, and that's how you try to bunt if you want to bunt for a base hit.
Strike 1 to Alfonso Soriano.
You know, he has so much speed that doesn't have to be running and dragging. That's more almost like a place bunt, and I use my speed.
Soriano lifts one to left. And Floyd has it 2 down. So there's 3 straight fly ball outs generated by Pedro, and he's retired the first 5 Nationals to face him.
You want to have some frustration in this ballpark. Start hitting the ball in the air. If you're a hitter, you're going to have a hard time getting any hits.
Here's Ryan Zimmerman. It's a beautiful night. Temperature 73 degrees. Some clouds around, but a little breeze out of the south, and you just couldn't ask for a better April night here in Washington. And not a bad crowd for the second game of the season as Zimmerman takes outside. Well, Pedro certainly looks a little sharper with his command early on than he was last Thursday.
He really felt like he was overthrowing on Thursday. Certainly not today.
And Zimmerman fouls it back 1-1.
It's almost like he said, you know, the last game I was trying to throw hard, trying to get the ball up to 90 miles an hour. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to back off, throw about 85% and make sure I hit my spots.
He's topped out at 86 so far tonight. 2-1 to Zimmerman. Mostly just changing speeds on his fastball. Zimmerman to left center. Beltran angling in, makes the dive, and he holds it on the roll. Terrific play by Beltran. He had to come a long way and made the reaching grab, rolled over and held on. Beltran with the backhand play, and Pedro has a 1-2-3 second. No score. Honda dealer and discover the great values now being offered. Strike 1 to Paul Lo Duca, who bounced to short his first time up, facing Tony Armas, who survived a couple of hits with 2 out in the first, a bunt single and a walk with 2 out in the second. And Lo Duca grounds one weakly foul, 0-2. Lo Duca turning 34 today, and we talked so much over the last few years about catchers and aging because of Mike Piazza having to cut back on his role a little bit as he got older. And here's Lo Duca catching the first 6 games of the year.
2 different games, though. Piazza was losing some of his power because of the pain in his legs, where Lo Duca's a different kind of player.
And he's fooled on that pitch, and a rarity, Paul Lo Duca strikes out.
Well, he's got a good slider tonight, has Tony Armas, and this one's excellent. Gets ahead in the count, throws it about 6 inches outside. And Carlos Beltran just ended that inning with this fine run and catch. It looked like he was no chance he was going to get it. Pedro, of course, appreciates it because he has a 1-2-3 inning. But at one point, look, there's no chance for him to get it. And that great speed, he closed the distance quickly.
Must not have been Beltran's best catch because he didn't get the double gun salute from Pedro. Here's a strike to Beltran, who broke his bat and singled to right first time up. Pedro will save that for a bigger spot. 3 strikeouts for Armas. That's only the second time, by the way, that Lo Duca has struck out this season, and year after year he's one of the toughest around to strike out. David Wright still hasn't struck out at all this year. 0-2 to Beltran. Well, if Armas can keep going the way he's going right now, with the stuff that he's displaying tonight, this is going to be a tough game for the Mets to win. The question is how deep he can go.
Well, that's always been a problem with Tony Armas. Throws a lot of pitches usually every inning, and usually that's why he's a 5 or 6 inning pitcher.
And he threw 40 over the first 2 innings tonight. Mets came into the night with the best team batting average in the National League at .314. 1-2 to Beltran. Well, you see the active leaders in toughest to fan. Lo Duca's former teammate Juan Pierre is now in Chicago at the top of that list. But you know, a lot of that with Pierre is the fact that he puts the ball in play pretty early in the count. Lo Duca will work deeper counts and still not strike out.
Just a great 2-strike hitter is Paul Lo Duca.
2-2 to Beltran. Gets it hard to second, and Vidro with a nifty glove move at the hip, and that's the second out. So 2 out and nobody on. Carlos Delgado coming up. Hey, if you haven't finished your taxes yet, there's still time. The tax team at Gilman COCA can help. Just head out to Shea and stop by the Mets team store April 14th through the 17th to get your taxes done for free by Gilman COCA. Two out and nobody on. Here's Carlos Delgado, who singled up the middle his first trip. So he's now hit in 6 straight games after being blanked on opening day. And a slider by Armas, and he's throwing that pitch a lot early on.
Well, it tells you that after the surgery to his shoulder this winter that he is very healthy, throwing 90 miles an hour and that sharp slider.
Goes off speed and misses away 2-0.
And I just wonder how difficult it is. I'm just lucky to be kind of injury free in my career, how guys can go through rehab after rehab, year after year. It's difficult to work on your game.
You see that they've changed the infield defense a little against Delgado this time putting on the overshift. Shortstop Clayton now playing right about where Delgado hit the ball his last time up.
Well, I think if you have a veteran pitcher, you will tell him where the fielders are, because you kind of try to pitch, stay away from Delgado, let him kind of pull it, or maybe some soft stuff down and in. The younger guy, you probably just let him pitch to his strengths, but Armas has been around a long time.
But this is the first time in 5 games against the Nationals that they've played the defense this way against Delgado, as he pulls one foul, 3-2. So they've made that adjustment. And it's interesting how different teams will play the same hitter different ways.
And let me tell you, Frank Robinson has a lot to do with where the defensive players play. After seeing that base hit from Delgado in the exact same spot where Royce Clayton is now, he probably just said, hey, forget about the charts. Get over there, Royce. I mean, that's what he'll do.
Strike 3 called. Armas pinted the inside corner against Delgado, and Tony Armas has his 4th strikeout in the first 3 innings. Mets go 1-2-3, middle of the 3rd, no score. We go to the bottom of the 3rd with no score. Pedro Martinez has retired the first 6, and like Brian Bannister yesterday, has done a nice job of pitching to the ballpark early on. As Royce Clayton leads off, 4 straight fly ball outs.
Clayton struggled early. That .219 average, has 7 hits, but all of them singles, so hasn't shown any power yet.
He's never done much against Pedro, just 8 for 41, and he hits this one to Reyes. And that's the first out. You know, this ballpark is great for a fly ball pitcher from 2 standpoints. One is that there's a lot of room, and there's a guy who would have hit a ball out of any ballpark and certainly hit many out of this park. Frank Howard, once known as the Washington Monument. He was the only reason to come see the Senators play back in the 60s.
Well, he was my manager in '83, and even then he was 55 to 60 years old. He could still take batting practice and hit balls out of Shea.
Strike to Brian Schneider. Hondo, longtime Mets coach and one-time Mets manager, but he was beloved in this town. As Schneider lifts one to shallow right, and Nady in, 2 away. Let's check in with Chris Cotter, who is way up in the outfield. Oh, wow, that's a long way.
Yeah, Gary and Ron, I'm almost sitting out of the park, as a matter of fact, as you talk about out of the park. I'm up here in left field, the upper deck, section 5,000, I think, but it's way up here, and I'm sitting next to a white painted seat. And, you know, there were once 24 of these white painted seats. And what the Senators used to do is when Frank Howard hit a long home run and it hit one of these seats in the upper deck, they would paint it white. Now, since then, they have actually had to replace some of these seats in the section in front of me. So there aren't 24 as there once were, but there are still a handful of these white seats up here. Just a reminder of how great a power Frank Howard had. Now, I'm telling you, I don't know what perspective you're seeing this from at home, but from my perspective, it is a mile and a half from me to home plate right now.
Frank's still trying to see how far he hit one. And Armas takes strike 3 called, and Pedro has his 2nd strikeout, and he's perfect over the first 3 innings. On to the 4th. As Hondo looks on, no score.
Join the crowd. For the latest information on Mets promotional giveaways and other special events at Shea, visit Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX. Get your tickets today.
A lot of kids in the ballpark. A lot of kids off from school this week. Perfect time to get them out to a ball game, and it's just a gorgeous night here in Washington. Yeah, you can even go sleeveless. Don't expect that in the middle of April for a night game. And there's some Met fans here. Trying to sneak into the picture there. You know, in past years, you'd always see lots of Mets fans down in Philadelphia, and every once in a while you'd see some up in Montreal, but this becomes a prime road trip for Mets fans. So many people spend time in both Washington and D.C., and there are a lot of Mets fans in town.
There's also the ability to get tickets here. Usually they don't sell out, maybe 25, 30,000, so always can get some prime seats also.
We go to the fourth with no score. David Wright leads off. David flying to center his first time up, stranding a couple, and he hasn't had that experience very often in the early season. Started the night 5th in the National League in batting, 6th in slugging percentage. And Armas finds the outside corner. Now Phil Cuzzy's the home plate umpire, and his strike zone's getting a little wide.
And getting wider, it seems, as the innings go on.
As if the hitters aren't at enough of a disadvantage in this park. We started talking about last inning how this is a great park as you look at the players since World War II who have driven in runs in each of the first 7 games of the year, and our buddy of the METS is on the list. Deep to center. Back goes Watson near the wall. Dives, can't get it. It bounces up and in play. Right around second, heads for third. The relay throw will not be made. It's a stand-up triple for David Wright. Now Brandon Watson almost made a circus catch on the warning track, but he can't get to it, and Wright has a 3-base hit.
Well, it looked like early on he misjudged it, but then he used his speed to catch up to it. Almost got it. Sacrificed his body going up against that wall. You see David Wright hustling right out of the box. Allows him to turn this into a triple.
So the Mets with an early scoring opportunity. And Cliff Floyd, who had a sacrifice fly in yesterday's game, will try and get him in. Well, Wright had just 1 triple all of last year. He's already got 2 this year. And Floyd hits it hard. That should bring the run home, and it gets between the legs of Vidro. Wright comes home. Floyd safe at first, and the Mets take a 1-0 lead. Now the run was going to score anyway with the infield back, but that ball just ate up Jose Vidro.
You're right about eating him up. That ball was smoked too off the bat at Cliff Floyd. He didn't really know whether he wanted to go to the backhand or keep it in front of him, and he didn't do either.
And so the Mets have a 1-0 lead, and we'll wait to see how they score that. Certainly should be an error, but either way Floyd will get an RBI. And now Xavier Nady bats with Floyd at first and nobody out. And Nady fouls it off, and they will give Floyd credit for a base hit. What do you think about that?
I think that's an error. I think that's an RBI and an error. It's a ground ball, but this is the big leagues, and you have to make that play. Somehow Vidro's got to knock that down. He'll have plenty of time to make the throw to first.
I agree with that. Here's Nady hitting one in the air to deep left field. Back goes Soriano, and he has room at the edge of the track. He reels it in. Floyd tagging at first, and he'll go to second. Terrific base running by Cliff Floyd, and he gets down into scoring position with 1 out.
Well, Cliff Floyd really just taking advantage of the inexperience of Soriano in left field. Soriano at this point is really just hoping to catch the ball. He's not getting himself in a position to throw it.
Well, Cliff realized early on that it was either going to go out of the park or be caught, and once he realized it was going to be caught, he prepared to tag up.
Well, that's a real veteran play, because he saw the way that Soriano was very tentative on that fly ball.
Caught the ball flat-footed in no position to throw. So now he's in scoring position, Floyd is, and Hernandez takes inside. Hernandez had a bunt single his first time up. Grounds one to Vidro. Handles this one and throws out Hernandez. 2 away as Floyd moves to third. We were making this point earlier about this being a pitcher's park. Not only a lot of room out there, a fly ball pitcher's park, but, and maybe this was part of the play with Vidro and why Floyd got credit for a hit. This infield is not the greatest surface to play on.
Well, DC United does play their games here, their soccer games here, so they played a game last Saturday, so this field really gets chewed up. They have a portable mound, but especially around second base and first base, pit players have really complained about the conditions.
Well, here's Pedro hearing it from the crowd again. Heard it yesterday during the pregame introductions, and Pedro making light of it, as you would expect, waved to the crowd. It was a little Pope wave he gave as he was booed. Grounds one to short, and Clayton with the easy play throws out Pedro, and so the Mets settle for 1 run. David Wright getting it started with a long triple to center field. Floyd gets the run in. 1-0 New York. Plate appearances now without a strikeout. Brandon Watson takes a strike.
I think only our Met fans that are good at Jeopardy and those kind of things are going to be doing anything with these Aflac questions this year.
That's one that you can't even research unless you have, the Elias's computer base. Great changeup by Pedro, and he has Watson out in front 0-2. Watson bounced out to short his first trip, and he continues to struggle, and it makes you wonder how long the Nationals will stay with Brandon Watson.
There's been a disappointment. He can't get on base. He's been thrown out twice stealing.
And he takes a fastball that just missed. 1-2.
Again, the ability to Pedro Martinez to pump it up a little as he goes along in this game. That fastball, 88 miles per hour.
Watson hits it the other way, and Floyd's right there. 1 down. So 10 have come to bat. 10 have been retired by Pedro Martinez. And uncharacteristically, 6 of them have been on fly ball outs. And again, they're just throwing a fastball and challenging Watson and letting him hit it in the air.
Well, Watson certainly doesn't have any power, so if he hits the ball in the air, he's going to be in trouble.
As Vidro has struck out his first trip, and he swings and misses. Off speed for Martinez, 0-1. Pedro really dialing it back now here, second time through the order. This one's hit to right. That's deep. Nady back near the wall, and it's out of here. Jose Vidro ties the game with his 3rd home run of the year. The first base runner against Martinez. Vidro leaves the yard, and the game is tied at 1.
Well, Vidro, one of the few Nationals that has come out hot out of the gates and really swinging the bat like a Vidro of old. He's had many leg problems, really suffered through last year's season, and looks back to normal with that bat. A little hanging changeup on the outside part. He was out on his front foot a little bit, but just strong enough to get it over the fence.
Well, here's Guillen, and he takes a strike. Well, Vidro hit 2 yesterday against Bannister to the fence, 1 in right and 1 in center. But this time he's able to clear the wall against Pedro. Second home run Pedro's given up this year. 1-1 to Guillen. Guillen fly deep to center his first time up. Only 2 other ballparks in the majors yielded fewer home runs per game last year. 1-2 to Guillen. Petco Park in San Diego, where they going to shorten up the fences a little bit. And the Colorado Rockies already took advantage of that, playing in San Diego. They put up double digits in 3 straight games. Broken bat off Pedro. He recovers. He throws out Guillen, and now see if Pedro's all right. He appears to be. A broken bat headed in his direction. He eluded that, but not the ball. Loduca out to make sure he's okay. As long as it doesn't get him in that big toe.
Pedro showed some good athleticism here with the pitch to Guillen as he hit that off the end of the bat. Guillen usually is really good at hitting those pitches on the outside part of the plate. You have to pitch him in. So far, Pedro has not gone inside, though, on Guillen.
So 2 away. And here's Nick Johnson, who fly deep to center his first time up. Takes the changeup low. Pedro never looks perturbed on the mound. And he's talked about it a lot this spring in relation to the toe, how it just doesn't matter once he takes the mound, how it feels, how his arm feels, that he just gets in that zone where he's just completely focused on the task at hand.
He almost has a blank stare kind of look as he looks up into the sky trying to figure out what pitch he's going to throw and then goes about his business.
Johnson grounds one right to Hernandez. And so Pedro gives up the home run to Vidro, but nothing else. The Nationals tie it up. We go to the 5th inning in Washington, 1-1. We go to the 5th inning in Washington. Mets and Nationals tied 1-1.
Well, how to stop any controversy? Just stay on the outside part of the plate, as Pedro Martinez has done, not only with his fastball, but also with his changeup and breaking pitches. And I wouldn't put it past Pedro to say to himself, okay, you don't want me to go inside because someone said that Watson or one of the umpires has said I can't go inside. I'm going to get you outside where you like your pitches. And that's the kind of game that Pedro will sometimes play.
Well, he's gotten Guillen twice today without incident. Reyes hit one ticketed for center field his last time up, and Armas stuck out his glove and snagged it. 1-1 to Jose. Mets have 5 hits off Armas. They got their run on a triple by David Wright and infield hit by Floyd to drive him in. Reyes fouls it off. And, it probably was an error on Vidro, but the way Floyd's going right now, he needs every hit.
Absolutely. No, as during the games here, you definitely want Floyd to get as many hits as he can, but just reading the play, as watching the play.
You saw LaDuca on deck. Reyes bloops one. Easy play for Zimmerman. And that's the first out. So 1 out and nobody on. Let's check in with Chris Cotter.
As we talk about the field and the little quirks of RFK Stadium here, I was talking to Rick Peterson before the game about Billy Wagner and his performance yesterday, and one of the things he told me was that he was having a little bit of trouble, and not to make excuses, but having a little bit of trouble getting used to the mound. Well, I've since learned that this mound here at RFK is actually retractable. It's on an elevator, and they have it so they can quickly get the field ready for DC United soccer games. Well, that got me thinking about Dick Cheney here yesterday, and I was wondering, hey, if they had to usher the VP out in a hurry, maybe they could just put him on that mound and lower it. But I don't think you could have a Don Adams, get smart moment where he disappears. I don't think it goes that low.
As long as they don't introduce the cone of silence. That might be an idea for some DC politicians as well. LaDuca hits it hard to Vidro, and this one he snags on a hop and throws out LaDuca 2 away. Well, you were talking about that hydraulic mound earlier, Ron, and what Wagner was saying was that the area right near the rubber was very slippery yesterday.
Well, this mound has always had a lot of complaints, especially in this inaugural season last year. Many pitchers just pawing at the entire mound. It is slippery, and the reason for it is that they don't have enough clay in front of that mound.
There's Beltran taking ball 1.
They have dirt and clay mixed usually. That's what makes up a mound, but you need a lot of clay right before that rubber because that'll stop your foot from sliding too much.
Beltran hits one toward the middle. That's a base hit. And the Mets have a 2-out base runner. Second hit of the day for Beltran. And here's the answer to our Aflac trivia question. The question was, besides David Wright, who's the only Met with 10 runs batted in before his first strikeout of the season, any idea?
I do know, but I saw it in our notes today, so I can't say.
Eddie Kranepool, 1975, 14 runs batted in before his first strikeout. Kranepool owns most of the cumulative records in Mets history. He's played the most games. He has the most hits. Stuck around for 18 years in the Mets uniform. Here's Delgado taking inside.
I just recently saw Ed Kranepool, and it's just always a joy to see him. He always has a big smile on his face. Very energetic, big man with that still strong Bronx accent.
Mets signed Ed Kranepool out of James Monroe High School in the Bronx when he was 17, and he was in the big leagues by the end of that '62 season. He wasn't an original Met per se, but he did play in the first season, and he was still around as late as 1979. Kranepool played in 1,853 games, more than 500 more than any other Met. Buddy Harrelson's second on that list, 1,322 games. 2-0 to Delgado, who struck out his last trip, 1 for 2. And he takes a strike.
Again, the defense against Delgado shifted over. Clayton to the right of second base. Vidro deep and in the hole at second. And the outfield very deep.
Now there goes Beltran. Delgado pulls it foul. So here with 2 out, Beltran inclined to run with Delgado up.
That's a good play. It's just trying to get on second base and give Delgado a chance to drive in with a base hit. And a great jump off pitcher Tony Armas, who has a lot of difficulty holding runners at first base. He's sometimes bailed out because Brian Schneider throws the ball so well, the catcher for the Nationals.
And you see what Beltran has done in terms of his stolen base success rate, but Schneider's one of the best in the business of throwing him out. Over 40% in his career. 2-2 to Delgado. Rips it down the right field line. Beltran around second. Into the corner goes Guillen to chase it. Beltran being waved around by Maniacta. Vidro's relay throw to the plate. Not in time. It's an RBI double for Carlos Delgado. And the Mets go back out in front 2-1.
Well, Armas trying to come inside with that slider, but it just stays over the middle of the plate, and then it was just whether Guillen could get to the ball and pick it up quick enough to get it in. He does, but the speed of Beltran, as you see, lowering his head and just going, he knows that he's going to have to get it going to score on this base hit by Delgado.
Once that ball cleared the stands and went all the way into the deep corner there, with Beltran's speed, there wasn't much chance for Guillen. So Delgado drives in his 5th run of the year. He's got 2 hits tonight. Mets have 7 hits now off Armas and a 2-1 lead. And another RBI chance for David Wright. David scored the first Met run after tripling to center field. Trying to pick up Delgado from second with 2 out. And he takes a strike. David with 10 RBIs. Only Andrew Jones starting the day had more in the National League. Andrew with 13 for the Braves. Oh, and 2 to right. And Andrew Jones is in the same spot again he was last year with Chipper Jones hurt. He's got to be the run producer on that team, especially with Jeff Francoeur off to a terrible start.
Not that you could call that, but Francoeur is such a free swinger. Knew that pitchers would start to throw balls out of the strike zone.
We talked about that in spring training. He's going to have to learn a little discipline. He's not Vladimir Guerrero, at least not yet. 0-2 to right. And Armas misses away. Speaking of Vladdy, this is incredible. He's now hit in 38 straight games against Texas. You talk about beating up on a team. 38 straight games with a hit against one team.
The pitchers for Texas should come down with the flu when he comes in town.
Right, inside outs one, behind first. Long run for Johnson, and he won't get there. It's quite an effort by Wright fighting that ball off.
That ball was a perfect pitch by Armas inside, and like you said, he just tries to get that ball out of his kitchen there. Fouls it down the right field line. Good try by Johnson. The one advantage, Wright does have the right field here, though, with 2 strikes. Guillen's got to respect his power to right field and right center. He plays deep, and that allows sometimes for base hits to drop in front of him.
Schneider and Armas talking about what to do now against Wright. David has very quickly established himself as good a 2-strike hitter as there is in the National League. And Armas bounces the slider 2-2. David now has a hit in each of the first 7 games the Mets have played. And looking to match that with an RBI for a 7th straight game. Two from Armas. Popped it up. Johnson. Guillen. Vidro. Vidro makes the grab. Side retired. The Mets regained the lead. Beltran got it started with a 2-out single. And his buddy Carlos Delgado drove him all the way home from first. 2-1 New York.
With a Chevrolet Baseball Night New York update, Padres and Marlins, and we know that guy. It's Mike Piazza in San Diego. Piazza with the single to left. He finishes 1 for 4, still stuck on 398 homers. Padres win. Garrett?
Well, it's nice to see Mike contributing. He had that home run his first time up on opening day. And the Padres have been struggling. It's been rough for them in the early going. But Mike contributing today to a San Diego win as they beat Florida.
I think he's going to have a good year there because Bruce Bochy, a former catcher, is going to use him the way he should be used, try to get him enough rest, keep those knees healthy.
That National League West right now, the great surprise is the Colorado Rockies. They've got some young players really hitting right now. Alfonso Soriano takes low. I mean, guys that nobody's heard of, Brad Hopp and Matt Holliday and Garrett Atkins. These are some good young players that Colorado is trying to mold all at once into eventually a winning team.
Well, the good thing about the Rockies is that they were thrown into the fire last year, so they played, you know, a half a season, so they have that kind of experience, which I think is really good for them. That's probably why they're taking off this year.
Soriano lifts one to center. Beltran has plenty of room out there, and he puts it away, 1 down. Well, the thing about the Rockies is that they made the playoffs in their 3rd season in 1995, and they developed that personality with the Blake Street Bombers, but they've had so many different game plans since then about how to build a team and how to manipulate the mile-high air.
Well, they thought they'd bring in some real free agent pitchers to come and pitch, and that was the way to go. They thought defense was the way to go, but then they got rid of Juan Pierre, who would have been perfect over there, the man that big outfield, and now they've got some good hitters, but not the Blake Street Bombers. Right. Certainly more guys who can hit for average. Probably Todd Helton has the most power for them in their lineup.
A little more athleticism on that team, and that helps. They've got Corey Sullivan, a youngster playing center field who can really go get the ball, which you have to in that outfield.
Absolutely.
And more importantly, I think they've tried to develop some sinker ball pitchers because there's no other way to survive in that air.
Well, Jason Jennings, one of their young pitchers, he's a sinker baller. I think that's the way you have to go. Good defense and athletic people.
Jeff Francis has proved that he can win at Coors Field, another young pitcher. 2-1 to Zimmerman. You know, I'm not saying they're going to win that National League West, but, you know, it's wide open. There's no favorite in that division. Zimmerman bangs one to right. And his fellow Virginian third baseman throws him out, 2 away. It's a great story in the paper today about Wright and Zimmerman and their relationship. They spent a lot of time together in the offseason working out together. They played together as kids on a travel team. Wright is a couple of years older. I mean, Zimmerman's a couple of years, well, Wright's a couple of years older, right? 23 to 21, but they've been close for a long time.
Bet you that team clobbered some teams.
You think?
Wow.
Well, B.J. Upton was on that team, too. In fact, Zimmerman was the second baseman. And Clayton lifts one to center. And again, Beltran will have room. And Martinez making use of the big ballpark. Pedro's allowed just one base runner. That was the home run by Vidro. 2-1 New York. We go to the bottom to the top of the 6th inning. Carlos Beltran's had a lot of work in center field today. Now, we've seen outfielders throw balls into the stands before, but that's a long toss. And he got it right on target to a couple of Mets fans.
One wearing his jersey.
You see Carlos Delgado keeping a black book.
He's keeping a book on the pitchers, absolutely, and probably is showing Victor Diaz to his left the kind of sequence of pitches that Tony Armas has gone against him in the history.
Cliff Floyd leads off and takes low, and that's a great thing to see. A young player like Diaz, who's got a lot of time on his hands right now, trying to learn from a veteran like Delgado.
Well, that's going to be a great thing about this team. The veterans mixed with the young guys, their learning curve goes up exponentially.
2-0 the count to Floyd. Cliff drove in the first Met run with a hard shot to second that ate up Vidro, and Cliff got credit for a hit. He's 1 for 2 on the night. He hits this one to left center. Long run for Soriano, and he makes the knee-high catch. Good play by Soriano. Still learning out there, but that was nicely done.
A hit off the end of the bat from Cliff Floyd. Little basket catch by Alfonso Soriano. He got a good jump on this ball, so that's a good sign for the Nationals.
During the 2006 season, the Mets half of the 6th inning during road games on SNY will be the Mets home run inning presented by Barbados Tourism. Stay tuned to Sportsnet New York or visit SNY.TV for details. Xavier Nady takes a strike from Armas. Nady now 0 for his last 11 and has struck out and flied out. I think we've learned very quickly about Nady that he's a rather streaky hitter.
If nothing else, we've definitely learned that.
We even had Chris Woodward mic'd up during batting practice for a game last week at Shea, and he said while he was mic'd, Nady's a pretty streaky guy. Well, we've seen him hot and cold both in spring training and already in the regular season. And he tries to lay off. Did he stop it? I guess he did. 1-2.
Well, listen, that's something that a manager like Willie Randolph loves to see, this check swing very close. Maybe get the benefit of the call, but you'll see where Willie Randolph might know that and say, you know, maybe I'll give him a day off when he's in the middle of one of those bad streaks.
2-2 to Nady. Well, Willie said before the game tonight that almost certainly Ramon Castro will catch tomorrow, his first start of the year. And maybe he'd get Victor Diaz a start, although he certainly made no mention of that. Breaking ball ripped down the left field line over toward the corner. That ball is one hop against the wall. Nady on his way to second. Soriano digs it out, and Nady, getting benefit of a hanging breaking ball, breaks that 0 for 11 with a double.
Well, maybe we got him started on a new streak by us talking about his bad streak, but tries to step out of the box, had to come back in because the umpire would not give him time. See, he's trying to get out of the box. Umpire doesn't give him time. It works for him as he gets his hanging slider and hits it down the line.
Sometimes you have to break your rhythm to get out of a slump. It's probably not what Nady intended, but it worked for him.
He'll have a laugh about it later tonight if the Mets win.
And here's Anderson Hernandez, who had a bunt single and then grounded out 1 for 2. And Hernandez is now hitting 4 straight games. To second base. And Vidro throws him out, so there are 2 away as Nady moves over to third. So here comes Pedro, giving the fans a chance to exercise their lungs. And speaking of the fans, you know, a lot was made in the Washington papers today, and rightly so, about the fact that they were 5,000 short of a sellout yesterday. I'll tell you what, though, there are a lot more people here tonight than I ever expected for the second game of the year.
Well, I think the confrontation between Martinez and Guillen got a lot of play in the paper. There also was an article that said, like you said, that there was some fans were more lethargic than they were last year on opening night.
Well, as Frank Robinson said, they didn't have a whole lot to cheer about. 1-1 to Martinez.
Well, we talked about it already. They don't have an owner in place. They think that's going to happen by the end of the month. Their radio here, local radios, had trouble getting a good signal. That's made it difficult to hear them sometimes. And the TV contract has not been worked out. So you can't show your team.
Martinez hits it weakly to short, and he'll just jog down to first as Clayton throws him out. So Nady gets the double, but the Mets unable to bring him around. We go to the bottom of the 6th inning. 2-1 New York. Game tonight. Holding a 2-1 lead as we go to the bottom of the 6th, and Brian Schneider takes a cutter inside. Schneider is fly to right. Martinez is yet to pitch out of a stretch tonight. The only Washington base runner was Jose Vidro, and he circled the bases.
Well, he's gotten behind Schneider here, but literally it seems like Pedro's game plan. I'm going to use this big ballpark. I'm going to throw strikes and try to get them out of the batter's box in 1, 2, or 3 pitches.
He's done that tonight. That was just the 50th pitch that he's thrown tonight, working in the bottom of the 6th inning. Look at that. And he's just throwing pitches that they can hit in the air, and they've done it all night long. And there's another one. That might fall in, though. Hernandez back. Can't make the circus catch. Great effort by Anderson Hernandez. Has already had a catch like that this year. But Schneider with a little parachute that falls in.
I mean, he's 50 feet from his position when he ends up diving for this ball. Almost comes up with a great catch again. Was Anderson Hernandez.
Well, the pitcher, Tony Armas, is due up in what would certainly be a bunting situation, but Frank Robinson is not going to leave Armas in to hit. He's going to bring up his best pinch hitter, the former Met Marlon Anderson.
Well, that seems like an unusual play to me. You would think that in this game you'd want to keep Armas in there. He's been pitching well, even though giving up only the 2 runs.
Unless he was going to take Armas out anyways. You saw Felix Rodriguez getting ready. He's thrown 95 pitches. And it makes you suspect that, because if he wanted to leave him in, this would be a perfect spot to leave Armas in to bunt.
I've seen Frank Robinson last year, though. He'll keep his starter in if he's rolling. It doesn't matter how many pitches they have. Now, not more than 125 or so, but certainly more than 95.
Well, the guy he's got going tomorrow, Levon Hernandez, can pitch all day.
That's right.
So here's Marlon. And he's up there looking to bunt the first pitch, or at least bluff it, 1-0. And that's what makes this odd. You don't want to send Marlon Anderson up there to bunt.
Although I do remember Tony Armas is not a very good hitter, and he's even worse of a bunter.
How can he not be a good hitter? His dad hit home runs left and right his entire career.
His dad had all the hitting genes. None were left. He got all the pitching genes.
Tony Armas Sr. was a great home run hitter. Now Martinez behind 2-0. So he fell behind 2-0 on Schneider. Now he's 2-0 on Anderson. Really the first time in this game that Pedro's command has wavered. Schneider no threat to run. Anderson 1 out of 5 to start the year. And Pedro misses 3-0. Now if Anderson were to walk, then almost certainly they'd have Brandon Watson bunting. There's Watson on deck. We're in the bottom of the 6th. Mets leading 2-1, and the Nationals really struggling for offense right now. Willie Randolph keeping his eye on Pedro. No reason he should be tiring at this point. And he misses badly inside, ball 4. The crowd reacting to the inside pitch, but Pedro clearly during that time at bat losing a little bit of command. And now the first 2 are aboard for the Nationals.
Well, he also did the Schneider as he got behind 2-0, and I think you're right, Gary, about Brandon Watson. He will be called on to bunt here. Can't take too much time, though, figuring out if you want to go to third or not, because if you're going to go to first, you got to go quickly. Watson with good speed.
David Wright coming into the mound to talk about bunt defense here, and Watson's going to get a face-to-face with Tony Beasley, the third base coach. You've got a rookie, and you want to make sure that he knows exactly what he's expected to do.
See the Mets defense, you know that both Delgado and David Wright be very aggressive in charging after this ball.
Wright fakes the charge, then drops back, and Watson fouls it off. Wright's first 2 steps were in as though they were going to run the wheel play, but they didn't.
Well, that's a good sign, because it's good to fake that. As you see Wright, a couple steps in, fakes it. That just gets Watson thinking, what are they doing? What should I do? Should I pull the bat back and swing?
A lot of times that hitter is told if he sees the wheel play to swing away. There's that little butcher boy cut.
David Wright at his tender age calling the defensive signals.
See Reyes trying to keep Schneider close at second. Schneider does not run well. Again, Wright takes 2 steps in and drops back, and Pedro misses high, 1-1. So the Mets doing their best to try to confuse the rookie Brandon Watson.
I'd be very surprised if the Mets ran the wheel play here. Schneider's not a very fast runner. Pedro's got to do his job and bust towards the third base line, and they'll have a play at third if Watson doesn't make a perfect bunt.
Question, of course, is how fast Pedro can bust with that toe. Bunted toward third. Pedro's going to have to field it, and his only play is to first, but he doesn't turn until way late, and the bases are loaded. Poor execution by Martinez, because that ball was bunted so well he never had to play at third.
Well, that's one of those plays is you know where the placement of the bunt is as a pitcher, where to go. A bunt like that, there's no way you can go to third base, so your first reaction is always to go to first. But it was so well placed, I don't even know if they would have had a play at first base on the Speedy Watson.
About the best play you have in that circumstance might be to fake the throw to first and try and get Schneider riding the bag at third.
As a pitcher on that play, after you follow through, you almost want to get your body going towards the third base line. Pedro wasn't able to do that time.
So a bloop, a walk, and a bunt have loaded the bases for Washington with nobody out. And their best hitter, Jose Vidro, stands in. He homered his last time up. 2-1 New York, 6th inning. And Pedro misses outside with a changeup. A golden chance for the Nationals with Vidro, Guillen, and Johnson trying to make something of it. Mets will concede the run to try and turn a double play. 2-0. There's Guillen waiting on deck. Well, Pedro fairly cruised through the first 5 innings. But trouble has found him here in the 6th without the ball being hit hard at all. Vidro takes a strike. 2-1. Chad Bradford starting to get ready in the Mets bullpen. On 2-1, Vidro swings through the fastball. That's the hardest pitch Pedro's thrown tonight, 89 miles an hour.
Pedro wanted to go inside with this pitch, but he had good movement as it ran up and away out of the strike zone to Vidro.
Well, he'd love to get a strikeout here. Give himself a chance to get through the inning on a ground ball double play. Bases loaded, nobody out. Vidro fouls it back. Pedro was going for the strikeout there. Schneider at third. Anderson at second. Watson at first. Of the 3, only Watson runs real well. Another fastball, and Vidro fouls it off. So Pedro hitting 91 on the gun there for the 2nd consecutive pitch. So he's spending some bullets here trying to strike out Vidro.
Well, he knows how important this strikeout is, and Pedro's as good as there ever was, turning it up a notch.
Armas looking on, hoping the Nationals can get him some runs and get him a chance for a win.
But after 3 straight fastballs, might be throwing a changeup.
And he comes upstairs with the fastball and strikes out Vidro, 1 away. Well, Pedro was persistent, and he climbed the ladder on Vidro.
Well, good pitching by Pedro Martinez. Did enough inside and was able to turn it up. So threw this fastball with a lot of movement on Vidro.
The guy's amazing. I mean, the guy has been throwing 86 miles an hour all night, and all of a sudden when he needs a strikeout, he throws 3 pitches in a row at 91.
Well, the great thing about Pedro is he's got great command, he's got great stuff, but the thing you've always liked about him is the way he competes.
So here's Guillen. Pedro's nemesis is hit a long fly ball to center and a broken back grounder back to the mound. Now Martinez would love to get a ground ball to get through the inning. Bases loaded, 1 out. And Guillen checks his swing and takes it high. And first base umpire Jerry Crawford confirms ball 1. Pedro is almost pitching this inning as though he expects it to be his last.
Although that ball is upstairs, he could really get Guillen on something down. Guillen's already hit into 3 double plays early in this season.
Perhaps that pitch was to set him up for something down. And now Martinez wants to talk with Loduca about it.
You know, the one thing Pedro does not like, he does not like that indecision where he has to go through 3 or 4 or 5 signs. Just doesn't like it. He'd rather call the catcher out probably tells him what he's going to try to do, not only on this pitch, but maybe on the successive pitches.
And the thing about it is that Pedro's game plan changes from moment to moment. And as a catcher, you can be on the same page all you want, but you don't necessarily know what he wants to do.
The first few at-bats against Vidro, he was going after him with a lot of slow stuff, a lot of change-ups, and he decided when he got in that tough situation that he would go after him with his fastball.
1-0 to Guillen. Pop foul. And Pedro keeps throwing the high fastball, and it's 1-1. He may be finding more life in his arm in this inning than he expected to.
I'll tell you, when the bases are loaded, you tend to get a little more life in your arm because you need it.
Pedro threw only 7 innings in spring training, as you see Guillen's numbers with the bases full. 6 innings in his first start, and now working into the 6th inning tonight and finding his best fastball of the year so far. On 1-1, Guillen takes high and wide. 2-1. Well, he threw fastball after fastball and struck out Vidro, and he's thrown 3 in a row to Guillen.
Well, he hasn't really thrown his breaking ball very much, a couple of times today, so it's really been fastball changeup.
Hammered to short. Reyes with the big hop. They'll have to hurry. Hernandez relay. Got him! Side retired. 6-4-3 double play. The Nationals loaded the bases with nobody out, and they do not score. Reyes with a quick toss to Hernandez, who hung in brilliantly against Watson's slide, and they turn the 6-4-3. We go to the 7th, 2-1. Puts together a great escape.
Another Houdini moment for Pedro Martinez, but lots of help from his infielders. But it was funny how he went from his slow stuff to right to his hard stuff fastballs. Just getting Guillen at first base.
But what a great turn by Anderson Hernandez in the middle of that double play.
Unbelievable, the athleticism of Anderson Hernandez. It looked like he was going to be buried by Brendan Watson out to left field, and somehow manipulated his body with the splits to get that throw off.
Felix Rodriguez comes on to pitch for the Nationals. Take another look at that double play.
Watch Hernandez. He stays in there, takes the hit. He gets enough on the throw to get Guillen at first base.
For a kid who is still making an adjustment to playing second base, even the manager, who is very spare with his praise, especially for second baseman because he was a great player at that position, had to be gushing over that.
They brought him here, brought him up north for his defense, and he's shown all of that so far in this young season.
So Reyes leads off against Rodriguez, who gave up the 2-run homer to Beltran in the game yesterday. Reyes 0 for 3, and he takes a strike. And Reyes had to be quick on that double play as well. That ball was hit so slowly by Guillen. It is so demoralizing for a team.
To load the bases, nobody out, and not score.
And you have your 8, 9, and 1 spots load the bases, and you got your big boys coming up. There's LaDuca on deck. But Pedro trusted his fastball, and he used it to strike out Vidro and then get the double play. Two and 1 to Reyes. Felix Rodriguez being asked to soak up appearances that probably would have belonged to Luis Ayala had he not gotten hurt in the World Baseball Classic. This is now his 7th appearance in Washington's first 9 games. Two and 2 to Reyes.
Well, Rodriguez has always been a guy who likes to take the baseball, likes to be out there. He's a fastball slider kind of pitcher, but usually uses his fastball, which isn't the same as it used to be. It used to be a 95, 96 mile an hour guy, but just the low 90s now.
Results have not been very good for him so far this year. And Reyes fouls it back. 2-2 to Reyes. Trying to extend a 5-game hitting streak. Here in the 7th. Keeps the at bat alive. 2-2. Felix Rodriguez at one time a feared setup man, particularly with the Giants when he would set up for Rob Nan. Nan is now retired and Rodriguez trying to hang on. Reyes smacks one to deep center field. Watson back. Can he get this one? No, it's over his head. Reyes will pull into second base. I think Reyes thought that ball was caught. He stopped between first and second. Second one that's gotten over Watson's head today.
Well, you see Watson is there in time, but kind of like looks like he stumbles a little bit right before the ball gets to him. And you see Jose Reyes, he stops, figures it's caught, but then has to turn on the guns again. But probably would have maybe been able to turn that into a triple if he was going the whole way.
Normally that's a triple for Reyes. Not sure why he thought that ball was caught, because the angle that he had, he should have been able to see that ball get beyond Watson. In any event, Paul Loduca will come up looking to move Reyes over to third. Loduca 0 for 3 playing on his 34th birthday. Got to get a hit on your birthday.
What a hit in RBI. I think what happened to Reyes there is that when I watched that play out here through the window, and Watson seemed to get there in time, you know, and he got there and he had time to get it, but he kind of stumbled in his glove and his head kind of bobbed and his glove bobbed and he missed the play.
Reyes smiling, but he would love to have that one back. He'd love to get to 20 triples this year. He's already got a couple. Of course, David Wright caught him today with his second triple.
Well, my money's still on Reyes, though.
Well, last year he out-tripled Wright 17-1, so probably won't be much of a race this year either. Loduca pushes a bunt. Rodriguez, after a brief bobble, throws him out, but that'll serve as a sacrifice to get Reyes over to third. So a runner at third with one out for Beltran. Let's check out our Hyundai in-game box score. Beltran and Delgado each with a couple of hits. Reyes extends hitting streak to 6. Wright with a triple today. And he's hit in all 7 games, but has not driven in a run today after driving one in each of the first 6 games. Well, this is odd. The Mets have a 2-1 lead. They've got a runner at third with one out, and the Nationals are playing the infield back. How do you figure that?
I don't know how they can figure that. They got to have the infield in, try to keep this game close. They're not scoring runs anyways.
This is very, very odd. And Beltran makes it a moot point as he hits it deep to right center. It'll get the run in. Watson has it, but Reyes will score easily. It's a sacrifice fly for Beltran, and the Mets now have a 3-1 lead. Loduca gets him over. Beltran gets him in.
Well, that's what Loduca can do, and out of that second spot, he can. He's a very good bunter. And Beltran doing the job. You got to make those, get those guys in when you have a chance. Good job on that sacrifice fly.
Beltran now with 8 runs batted in. He's also scored 10 runs early in the season. So Beltran lifting his game after a couple of poor days to start the season. Well, here's Delgado, who already has a single and a double and has driven in a run, 2 for 3. And he takes ball 1. With Beltran at first and 2 out in the 5th, Delgado doubled into the right field corner to bring home the go-ahead run.
Again, the defense shifted way over in the last 2 at-bats at Delgado. First time up, they played him pretty straight up.
2-0 to Delgado. Carlos singled up the middle, right about where Royce Clayton, the shortstop, is playing right now. That first time up, and the Nationals made the adjustment. Rodriguez behind him, 2-0. 2-1.
Well, that's where your defense and that double play in the bottom of the inning can kind of pick you up. You have that great double play, you come back and put up a run on the board. Good changeup from Rodriguez there on the 2-0 count.
Well, the Mets have executed both offensively and defensively for these first 7 games of the year. You know, execution can mean turning a double play, and it also can mean leadoff double, getting them over and getting them in. David Wright on deck. And it's something that Willie Randolph has emphasized from the day he arrived. Doing those little things right. And that's what wins games. Delgado lifts one to right center field. Guillen making the call. And the inning comes to an end, but the Mets tack on a big run. Reyes with the leadoff double. Beltran gets him in. 3-1 New York. We go to the bottom of the 7th inning. Mets with a 3-1 lead. Well, the Mets are playing their 7th game, and in every one of them, the Mets starting pitcher has gone at least 6 innings.
Well, that's going to be a big plus for the Mets this year. Just their starting pitching was really one of the only things you looked at and said, boy, that might be the only weak spot in the team, and it's been a strength in these first 7 games. Nick
Johnson leads off the home 7th. It takes ball 1 from Martinez, who got himself into and out of trouble in the 6th in a 1-run game. Now he has a 2-run lead. 1-1 to Johnson. It just takes so much pressure off the bullpen when your starters day after day can go deep into games, and you see the Mets are the only team to do that so far this year. Johnson fouls it back 1-2.
Not only that, but it makes it great for the manager because he can really set up his bullpen in such a way to get the ball to Billy Wagner.
And it keeps you from having to use your lesser relievers. Johnson lifts one to center. That's deep. Beltran back near the wall, jumps, and he's got it. The ballpark just big enough to hold that one. Boy, Beltran's had a busy night in center field.
Well, that ball was smoked to left center field, but it's so cavernous out there. Beltran could really cruise, get under the ball, get to the wall, and made that difficult catch make it look very easy.
That's 6 putouts for Beltran in center field, and he's had all manner of them, several going back, and one great rolling catch to rob Ryan Zimmerman of a hit back in the 2nd. Here's Soriano with 2 out. And I think what we're seeing right now, maybe for the first time since he joined the Mets last year, is the real Carlos Beltran. 1-1 the count.
I think you're so right, Gary. He looks relaxed out there. He's hitting for some power, but he's hitting those line drives, making great defensive catches, stealing bases. It's a lot of things he can, a lot of weapons he has.
I think people got the wrong impression of Beltran when he hit all those home runs for the Astros in the playoffs 2 years ago. It's one of the things that drove the price up, no question about it. But this more complete Carlos Beltran, I think, is the guy that the Mets should have been expecting to get all along.
Yeah, he's not that kind of player. He's not going to be a guy who's going to hit 40 home runs and drive in 120 people. He's going to play great defense for you. I think a lot of times, too, he makes everything look so easy sometimes. You think he's not really trying out there.
Soriano drives one to right, but Nady's right there, battling the lights. He grabs it 2 away. The ball almost got caught in the lights on Nady. So 2 away. And here's Zimmerman. But even Carlos was talking about it yesterday. He said, look, my job's to get on base every time I'm drawing my walks. That's a great thing. And you look at, he's already scored 10 runs in the first 7 games. With the guys hitting behind him with Delgado and Wright and Floyd, he could score 120 runs this year.
Easily.
0-1 to Zimmerman. Meanwhile, Pedro just rolling along and taking advantage of the ballpark tonight.
Bannister did it yesterday. Pedro Martinez tonight.
10 fly ball outs. You're not going to see that often from Pedro. 1-1 with the changeup.
I'm talking about Beltran again. You can't say enough either about having Carlos Delgado here. He doesn't feel like he has to be the man, just one of the men.
You know, this is the player that Carlos was in Kansas City, and he did it with nobody watching. Stealing his 30 bases a year, hitting his 30 home runs, driving in his 100 runs, scoring his 100 runs. And even if he doesn't hit 30 home runs, if he does those other things, he will have had a productive year. But I think that last year he got very caught up in the contract, as did the fans, in terms of the expectations, and compounded by the fact that he was running on a bad leg for 2 months and trying to play through it. He was going up there looking to hit home runs every time up, and that's not the kind of player he is.
If he goes up there looking for home runs, you're going to end up with a lot of ground balls to second and pop-ups to left field. So haven't seen much of that so far this year.
1-2 to Zimmerman as Pedro tries to make his way through the 7th. He's only pitched to 3 over the minimum tonight. 2-2 to Zimmerman. Hasn't been a whole lot for National fans, young or old, to cheer about so far this year. Washington was never under 500 last year, but off to the 2-6 start. This is with a curveball, 3-2. Didn't throw many curveballs in this game. 2
in a row there by Pedro Martinez.
There's Clayton hoping for a turn on deck. 2 out and nobody on. Payoff to Zimmerman. He pops it up. Loduca looking for it. And the inning is over. So Pedro bounces back with a 1-2-3 inning. We're through 7 now in Washington. 3-1 New York. Hey, Met fans, always traveling and missing games? Watch Mets games live online whenever you're away from New York, exclusively from MLB.tv. Mets.com has more live games than anyone else. Mets.com, where baseball is always on. Pedro Martinez coming off after the 7th inning, talking to Willie Randolph. Pedro's thrown only 86 pitches in his 7 innings. Is he done?
I was looking at Willie Randolph and was kind of read his lips, and he was saying to Pedro, "Are you fine physically?" You know, asking him how his stamina is, how his right arm feels. And it seems like on all accounts, Pedro still wants to stay in this game.
He's had a marvelous night. He's given up just a run on 3 hits. Damian Jackson comes in to play third base in a double switch. He'll bat 9th. Gary Majeski will pitch and hit 6th. As David Wright leads off in the 8th inning, Mets leading 3-1. And David takes the fastball high from Majeski.
Gary Majeski, another one of those pitchers that did a fine job of Frank Robinson last year. Got a good fastball that he throws around 95 miles per hour, slider, and a great changeup that he uses against the left-handed hitters.
It's turned out to be a good trade for the Expos/Nationals. They traded away Carl Everett to the White Sox, and Everett helped the White Sox win a World Series last year, but they got back Majeski and John Roush. Throws a fastball by Wright, 1-2.
Well, the Nationals, for the better part of the first half last year, did not have a lefty in the pen, so Majeski was in charge of getting the left-handers out and did a great job.
Carl Everett, by the way, is in Seattle now, hitting 115. But then again, Ichiro's hitting 176. Wright fouls it off, and that's part of why Seattle's off to a 3-5 start. Adrian Beltre hasn't hit it all either. He's hitting under 150. Mets don't have those problems right now. Mets with 9 more hits tonight. 12 hits yesterday. Wright bounces one over third. It goes by Jackson and down the line. Jackson pulled his glove out of the way. I'm not sure why. Wright overran first, and now he cruises into second. Wright had no idea that Jackson had let that ball go by, and I have no idea what Jackson was thinking pulling his glove out of the way.
Well, never assume that a ball is going to be fouled. Damian Jackson thinks this ball is foul, so just lets it go.
But even if it was.
No, I'm saying never assume it. It's a silly thing to do. You got to make the play. You see guys catch a ball 2-3 feet in foul territory just to make sure that they hear the umpire first.
And there's Wright overrunning first. Must not have heard Sandy Alomar tell him to take a turn.
Well, that's just a bonehead play there by Damian Jackson. I'm sure he'd want that back.
And the ball was clearly fair. So Wright now has a double and a triple tonight. And the Mets again in double digits in hits with their 10th. Here's Floyd, is 1 out of 3. Drove in a run with an infield hit in the 4th. And Majeski comes inside. Hang loose, Cliff. Cliff was saying the other day, hey, if they're upset about a pitcher hitting them, why don't they just hit the pitcher? Leave us out of it.
I'm a former pitcher. I believe in that. If a pitcher is headhunting, hit the pitcher.
Pickoff try at second, and Wright gets the hand back.
Have to keep Wright close for a couple of reasons. One, keep him from trying to score. And secondly, Damian Jackson playing so far off third base with the left-handed hitter Floyd up that Wright could think of trying to take that third base back.
You know, if the Nationals are going to hit anybody, this would certainly be the spot for it with first base open. But Floyd goes the other way, rifles it toward the left field corner, and that is a foul ball. Just barely missed an extra base hit. 1-1 to Cliff.
Chesky went away with this fastball. Floyd almost kept his fair as it's 5 feet foul down that left field line. Hard to see up here in the box.
Cliff was running it out. Thought it had a chance. 1-1 to Cliff. Big hole on the left side of the infield there for Cliff to shoot at. Clayton almost behind the bag. Late on a fastball, 1-2.
See Floyd with that motion saying stay back. Here, of course, way out in front. Committing too early to that pitch as it was out of the strike zone.
Majeski ahead 1-2. Comes inside to Floyd 2-2. Floyd trying to fight his way out of an early season slump, and Rick Down, the Mets hitting coach, looking on. Hitting coaches live and die with their hitters. Cliff fights one off.
Well, I think for a guy like Cliff Floyd, obviously Cliff is a solid hitter. Best hitter for the Mets last year with those 34 home runs. So if you are struggling as a big league hitter like Cliff Floyd, you're not a mile away. You're an inch away. So you have to kind of go back to the basics. And I'm sure that's what Rick Downs is doing with Cliff Floyd.
Paid crowd tonight, 29,985 in Washington, and Cliff pops this one foul. That's a good second night crowd for the Nationals and the Mets here in Washington. Bud Selig, by the way, was quoted in the Washington papers today as saying that an owner would be named for the Nationals by the end of next week. But what he also said, and I found this very interesting, the point was made to Bud that a lot of the enthusiasm has been lost here in Washington because of the delay of getting an owner in here. 3-2 to Floyd. And you were talking about that earlier, Ron. But the commissioner said if the people in Washington think having an owner is going to solve all their problems, they're mistaken. Which I thought was a very strange thing for the commissioner to say.
We'd love to have that quote back, I'm sure.
3-2 to Floyd.
People here are looking for the owner to solve the problems as far as a budget. And
line caught by Johnson, and he drops it before he can make the throw to second, but the out is made. Wright was scrambling back to the bag, and Johnson was hoping to double him off. But Nick dropped the ball while making the transfer, and the out is recorded.
Yeah, this is what happens when you're in a slump. Your line drives are caught, and fine play by Johnson, and umpire's right, trying to take it out of his glove to get right at second. That's when he lost control of it. David Wright did a pretty good job there. Got a freeze on the line drives. That gave him a chance to get back to second.
You saw Clayton hopping there. Right now, the Nationals have to feel like nothing is going right for them, even when they make a good play, as Nady's going to be intentionally walked. You know, Clayton's moving to the bag there, waiting for that relay from Johnson to turn two. A nice snappy double play, and all of a sudden it's not there.
Well, two teams getting off to different starts. You know, the Mets with that fine double play on that ground ball to Jose Reyes, and like you said, the play that Johnson made that couldn't turn into a double play.
Majeski intentionally walking Nady to get to Anderson Hernandez. Behind Hernandez is the pitcher's spot, and the Mets have the bullpen working, so Whether Pedro's definitely coming out of the game or not, I don't know, but Willie's leaving himself the option as Aaron Howman gets ready in the bullpen. There's Julio Franco coming out on deck, so it would appear, at least for the moment, as though Pedro's done. Franco could be a decoy to get them to pitch to Anderson Hernandez. We'll see how it works out.
Well, what happens early in the season, too, is not that Pedro is done, because he probably still can pitch, but I think a manager says, you know, I don't want a long inning. If I have a long inning and he's sitting on the bench for a long time, that's a time you might take out your pitcher also.
Hernandez 1 for 3, had a bunt single back in the second, and Majeski misses with a fastball. 93 miles an hour from Majeski. He was turned into a valuable member of that Washington bullpen the last couple of years. Hernandez fouls it off. Anderson Hernandez fighting his way out of an early season slump in a variety of ways.
Well, here with the little butcher boy runs up and just kind of half swings that, puts it over the head of the pitcher when at great speed. That's easy. And he's been working on his bunting to try to get some of these easy hits, these bunt base hits. And you can see that maybe not Jose Reyes, but he can fly.
1-2 to Hernandez, who's now hit in 4 straight games. And we talked about this earlier. The Mets don't expect a lot offensively out of Anderson Hernandez. As long as he hits a little bit with his defense, especially that double play he turned tonight, they will live with him over the long term. What that means for Kaz Matsui when he's ready to come back, your guess is as good as ours. Slap to third, Jackson to second, Vidro's relay, in time, double play. Now Jackson makes up for not fielding White's double, starts the 5-4-3 double play, and the Mets are turned aside. On to the bottom of the 8th, 3-1 New York.
Bring a group to Shea. Watch the Mets with family, friends, or community organizations. Choose ballpark seating or a hospitality option like the picnic area. For a full calendar of special events, including fundraisers, call 718-507-TIXX to book your group now.
To advertise your business during Mets baseball, call Cablevision Advertising Sales, 201-651-7900.
Chevrolet Baseball Night New York update. It's Phillies and Braves in Atlanta, and Mike Lieberthal driving one to the gap. 2 runs come in the 5th. The Phillies lead the Braves 4-3. Back to Gary and Ron.
Matt, and after Pedro Martinez went to the mound to warm up for the bottom of the 8th inning, Willie Randolph has decided to take him out of the game. And the Mets will turn it over to Aaron Howman and the bullpen. Scott Howman a little extra time to warm up. Pedro heading off, getting the negative reaction from the Washington crowd. But he leaves after 7 solid innings, allowed just 3 hits and a run, and Howman comes on to protect a 3-1 lead.
Tomorrow, the Mets and Nationals close out their series in the nation's capital, live on Sportsnet New York. It all starts with North Fork Bank pregame live. Mets, Nationals, coverage begins tomorrow at 12:30, only on Sportsnet New York.
Get your New York sports here. 8th for Washington, and he takes a strike from Howman, who worked a 1-2-3 inning last night.
Howman doubling up now, pitching 2 days in a row as he gets used to that role in the bullpen again.
Terrific outing for Pedro Martinez, who's in line for his 199th career win if the bullpen can make it stand up. Bounce to short. Reyes takes his time and throws out Clayton one away. Last year, Pedro Martinez won 15 games, but he had 5 games that he left with a lead that the bullpen let get away.
Well, it certainly should have been a 20-game winner last year with the way he pitched, but bullpen looks much stronger so far in this early season.
That is certainly going to help all the starting pitchers. But the starting pitchers have done their part going deep into games. Pedro threw 86 pitches over 7 innings, allowed a run on 3 hits, walked 1 and struck out 3. There's Brian Schneider, who takes a strike from Howman. Schneider has 1 of the 3 hits. He blooped a single to right to get the Nationals' best chance started in the 6th inning. Change up low, 1-1. Nationals loaded the bases in that 6th inning with nobody out, but Pedro did his best work striking out Vidro and getting Guillen to bounce into a double play. 2-1 to Schneider. Damian Jackson sitting 9th in the order. He's on deck. field. And the Nationals have a one-out base runner. So Schneider has his second hit of the night, just the fourth hit for Washington. Check out the Toyota scoreboard in the National League. Cubs beat the Reds today 4-1. San Diego down Florida 7-2. The Dodgers and Pirates tied 5-5. Jack Wilson, Craig Wilson, Freddie Sanchez all with home runs for Pittsburgh. Phillies lead the Braves 4-3 in the fifth. Cardinals up 4-3 on the Brewers with Jason Marquis on the mound. Colorado and Arizona later. And the Astros and Giants rained out again. Second straight day in San Francisco. I think they had 4 rainouts since the ballpark opened there, and 2 on back-to-back days.
I have a lot of friends in Northern California that I was talking to today, and they say it's just as bad as it's ever been there with the rains.
The Mets once had a rainout I can recall at Candlestick Park, but they don't get very many of them. 0-2 to Jackson. Alman went 6 days without pitching before coming in yesterday. And now pitching on back-to-back days. Billy Wagner is available tonight. He and Willie Randolph both confirmed that before the game tonight. As Jackson fouls it off. Wagner had that 33-pitch 9th inning yesterday in a non-save situation. And talking to Willie before the game, Willie said that Wagner was going to pitch no matter what. But Billy didn't know that. Willie had the plan to pitch him, but he didn't tell Wagner, and Wagner said that's good, because if I knew I was going to pitch, it wouldn't have been the same. I couldn't have gotten the adrenaline going the same way. The closer is a different breed. 1-2 to Jackson.
They're creatures of habit too out there in that bullpen. They don't want to know until the bullpen coach calls their name.
You get that rush, all of a sudden you're throwing your dozen warm-up pitches and ready to go.
It doesn't take Billy Wagner very long to get ready.
He's still working his way into form. Talking to him today. And Jackson hits one to center field. Beltran back. And another deep fly ball out. Now Beltran keeps going back and keeps finding him. That's his 7th put out in center field.
Well, he's supposed to have a team built for your park, but the park has really hurt the Nationals in these first 2 games more than it has the Mets.
So 2 away. Schneider's still at first, and here's Watson. Watson was bunting, trying to sacrifice in the 6th, but bunted so well, and Pedro Martinez played it poorly, that Watson wound up with a bunt single. He's 1 for 3. Takes outside. In 2006, Hyundai, the Mets, and Sportsnet New York are teaming up to strike out cancer. For every K the Mets pitching staff registers, Hyundai, the Mets, and Sportsnet New York will donate $25 to the Hope and Heroes Children's Cancer Fund. And that fund is building. Watson slaps one to third. Nice backhand play by Wright. Makes the throw in time to get Watson's side retired. Nicely done by Wright, who was playing in close. 1 hit and 1 left. We go to the 9th, 3-1 New York. We go to the 9th inning here in Washington. The Mets looking for their 5th straight win and leading 3-1. And Julio Franco is going to bat for Aaron Heilman. And this is interesting because you've got a right-hand pitcher in the game leading off the inning. You would figure Andy Chavez, little left-hand batter, would be the guy to send up in that spot, but it's Franco instead.
Yeah, you think Chavez would be perfect, but I think maybe Willie Randolph is just trying to get Julio Franco some at-bats because he hasn't been able to use them very often this year.
Mets haven't been behind very much, and they haven't had to pinch hit for anybody except the pitcher late in games, so there haven't been a whole lot of pinch hit at bats. Julio's had just 2, and he's had 1 hit. It's one foul down the right field side. 0-1. So Franco batting for Heilman, who did his job setting up in the 8th, setting the stage for Billy Wagner. So, as both Billy and Willie Randolph insisted, even after that long outing yesterday, Wagner ready to go. I said to Billy, do you mind coming back the next day after 30-plus pitches? He said, I prefer not to, but that's my job. I'm going to be out there if it's a safe situation. But he wanted the work. He feels so off in terms of his mechanics. He was very happy to get in that game yesterday. 0-2 to Franco.
He doesn't have his good fastball yet, and the only way to get it is to throw. The more you throw, the more he's going to have a chance to get that ball back up in that 95, 96 mile an hour territory.
He threw a 3-2 slider yesterday, and I said to him, have you ever thrown a 3-2 slider? He said, not often, but right now, he says I have better command of my slider than I do of my fastball. His control was way off yesterday. Franco keeps the at-bat alive.
You'll see Franco at this point in his career mostly will take fastballs, well, good fastballs, and hit it to right field or right center, and will pull the breaking ball.
Much of his playing time over the last few years with the Braves came against left-handed pitching. As you see Reyes on deck. And he swings and misses at the slider, and Majeski strikes him out. First strikeout for Gary Majeski. 1 out and nobody on. Jose Reyes coming up. Mets Kids Clubhouse opens its doors every week, and it's where the kids rule the show. Learn about baseball and all your favorite New York Mets. Mets Kids Clubhouse, Saturdays at noon, only on Sportsnet New York. Reyes doubled over the head of Watson in center field and scored the insurance run in the 7th. 1 out of 4 on the night. Takes a strike. Reyes has now hit in 6 straight games after failing to get a hit only on opening day. Nothing and 2 to Reyes. Paul Loduca still looking for that birthday hit, waiting on deck.
I'll tell you, I never remember having a good game on my birthday. Just too pumped up. Maybe you want to have one of those special moments, and it doesn't always come.
Well, no people on earth seem to hate birthdays more than professional athletes. Because while birthdays remind everybody a little bit about their own mortality, that comes a little faster for athletes. 2 and 2 to Reyes.
Getting that much closer to getting your walking papers. That's what happens when you get a birthday in baseball.
Happy birthday is like an epithet.
So true.
2 and 2 to Reyes. Slap to third. And Jackson throws out Reyes 2 away. So 2 out and nobody on. And here's Loduca, 0 for 3 and a sacrifice. That sacrifice helped build a run in the 7th. But you know, even with the sacrifice, he pushed that bunt, giving himself a chance to beat it out. Not that Loduca's going to beat out a lot of bunts.
But he had the surprise factor working, and thought maybe if he could push it up there, he could beat the pitcher to the face.
2 out and nobody on. And Majeski throws a strike. Don't forget, Nissan Postgame Live follows our game broadcast. Now, Yeloff will be along to let you know everything that's happening in baseball. Loduca fouls it off 0-2. Carlos Beltran's had a big day at the bat and in the field. He's on deck. Majeski working his 2nd inning, delivers. Hit past the mound. Vidro's right there. And it's a 1-2-3 inning for Majeski. So Billy Wagner will take the mound in the bottom of the 9th inning for the Mets, working with a 3-1 lead. As we go to the bottom of the 9th, time for the AOL game summary. Pedro Martinez in line for his 2nd win of the year. Gave up just 3 hits over 7 innings. Carlos Delgado drove in the go-ahead run. David Wright, no RBI tonight for the first time this season, but a double and a triple. Want a better high-speed internet? You belong at AOL. And Billy Wagner is on to try to pick up his 2nd save of the season, after working in a non-save spot and walking 3 in the 9th inning yesterday.
Billy had some issues with the mound. Hope that doesn't happen tonight.
Jose Vidro leads off and takes a strike from Wagner. 97 miles an hour to start him off, and that's the hardest pitch Billy's thrown this year. Vidro 1 for 3, homered back in the 4th for the only Nationals run. And he takes one wide, a changeup from Wagner, 1-1. Billy was talking about throwing that changeup more. Two and one. Rally caps for the Nationals fans. Wagner trying to make them useless. Vidro fouls it back. 2-2.
Well, already Wagner seems to have a lot better control of that fastball than he did yesterday afternoon's game.
The big hitters up for the Nationals here in the 9th, and Wagner trying to hold them off. Vidro on 2-2, taps one weakly. Wagner will have to hurry. And he throws out Vidro, one away. So 1 out and nobody on. The WB11 knows you want an accurate, reliable weather forecast you can plan your life around. That's where Mr. G comes in. He'll tell you what to expect morning, noon, and night, plus the days ahead. Mr. G's planning forecast only on the WB11 News. 1 out in the 9th. Here's Guillen, 0 for 3, and in the biggest spot in this game, Pedro Martinez, with the bases loaded in the 6th, got him to ground into an inning-ending double play. And Wagner fires a fastball for a strike.
It's going to be an interesting matchup because Billy Wagner always pitches Jose Guillen inside.
Guillen had a good cut at that, but fouled it back. Guillen is just 2 for 18 in his career against Wagner. Fly to right against him yesterday. Wagner still not throwing as consistently hard as you expect him to. And Guillen drives one to deep left center field. Beltran going back. He won't get to this one. Cut off in the gap, and Guillen will hold it first, taking no chances with his team down by 2 runs.
Well, this ball gets in a little bit on Jose Guillen, but he's strong enough to fight it off, and it was just well placed right between Beltran and Floyd.
So now the tying run comes to bat in the bottom of the 9th, and it's Nick Johnson, who's already hit a couple of big home runs against the Mets this year. Today, he's 0 for 3. Last time up, he sent Beltran back to the fence in distant center field. And Wagner misses inside at 96 miles an hour. 1-0. Johnson 1 for 3 in his career against Wagner. He walked yesterday. 1 out and 1 on. Johnson hits one weakly to first. It stays fair, and Delgado gets the out. Throws to second, but too late. Guillen going in standing up. It's not a good play by Guillen. He's got to slide there. That could be the last out of the game. But smartly done by Delgado.
Smartly done in the way that he made sure he got an out first, and instead of trying to take the risky way of trying to go to second base to first for the double play.
Guillen's run means nothing. The guy who matters is at the plate in a 3-1 game. Soriano's been up 3 times. He's flied to left, flied to center, flied to right. Wagner trying to put on the finishing touches. 3-1 New York. And Soriano watches inside. 1-0.
We see Billy Wagner trying to work inside on Alfonso Soriano. Bannister tried to do that yesterday. It cost him a home run. So Soriano, a good fastball hitter, especially over the middle of the plate.
Beats him with a fastball, 1-1. 99 miles an hour, and Wagner starting to dial up the heat.
Well, this is what you can do to Soriano, though. You can climb the ladder with him.
Chasing that ball well out of the zone. 1-1 to Soriano. Wagner misses inside. 2-1.
You can still tell that his mechanics are just not right, though. It's 91, 97, 92, 95. There's going to be a time when he starts painting it in there around the same speed all the time.
Soriano tying run at the plate with 2 out. 2-2. So now Wagner has the Nationals down to their final strike. Matt Lecoy out on deck. The pitcher due up next. Lecoy will pinch hit if Soriano keeps it going. It's 2-2 to Alfonso Soriano. Grounded to third. Wright plays the short hop, throws on the run. Delgado with the tag, and the ball game is over. Billy Wagner earns his second save as Pedro Martinez picks up his 199th career victory, and the Mets have won their 5th in a row to go to 6-1 on the season.
It's good to see Billy Wagner there. He threw a lot better tonight than he did in yesterday afternoon's game.
Well, Wagner dialing it up to 99 at one point in that last at bat against Soriano. He saves it for Pedro Martinez. The Mets off to their best start since 1985 as they go to 6-1 on the year, and they can go for the sweep of this series tomorrow afternoon with Victor Zambrano on the mound making his season debut. The turning point of this game came in the 6th inning. The Nationals loaded the bases with nobody out, down by a run. Vidro strikes out, and then Jose Guillen hits the ground ball.
Well, Pedro turned it up a notch. Really threw some good fastballs up to 91 miles an hour in that inning.
And a fabulous turn there by Anderson Hernandez to keep the tying run from scoring. And it's all smiles for Billy Wagner today. After he struggled with his control yesterday, he was able to earn the save today in the spot where he really needed to. He turned up the gas, and the Mets win it by the score of 3-1 here at RFK Stadium. So once again, our final score, the Mets 3 and the Nationals 1. Be sure to join us for our next Mets broadcast tomorrow at 1 o'clock as the Mets wrap up this series with the Nationals. Coming up next is the Nissan post-game live. But first, let's go to Kenny Choi in our New York Sportsnet studios. Good night from Washington.